Hannah Cobb shot her boyfriend dead at 5:30 in the morning in their bedroom while their children slept down the hall. She told police she was checking her gun when it went off. But here's what doesn't add up. Who checks a loaded firearm after a night of drinking? Why did police let her walk free for 24 hours while Telvin Osborne's body grew cold? And why is she only facing involuntary manslaughter when the sheriff himself says this was no accident? This is the case that has Burke County, Georgia demanding answers. Before we get too deep, hit the like button, share your take in the comments, and tap subscribe with the bell so you never miss the next episode of Deranged Women. The woman at the center of this story was 25 years old. Hannah Cobb lived in a modest home in Burke County with her boyfriend Telvin Osborne and their 2 children. From the outside, they looked like countless other young families in Georgia, working hard, raising kids, trying to build something together. But relationships have pressure points, and this one had a gun in the mix. Hannah kept a firearm in their home. She'd later tell investigators that checking it was part of their nightly routine, something she and Telvin did together every single night. That detail would become crucial to her defense. Telvin Osborne was a young father who worked hard and, according to those who knew him, loved his children. On the night he died, he'd been out drinking. Hannah was with him for part of the evening, but the exact details of their night out would become another point of contention. What we do know is that they both returned to their home in the early morning hours. Their children were asleep in their beds. The house was quiet. And then, according to Hannah, she decided it was time to check her gun. Think about that for a moment. You've been drinking. It's past 5 in the morning. Your kids are sleeping. Your boyfriend is there with you, and you decide now is the time to handle a loaded weapon? The sheriff would later reveal something that makes this story even more questionable. Despite Hannah's claim that she was checking or cleaning her firearm when it discharged, investigators found no cleaning supplies, no evidence of any routine maintenance, just a woman, a gun, and a dead man. But to understand how we got to that moment, we need to look at what happened in the hours before. Because according to Sheriff Alfonso Williams, this wasn't just about a gun going off. This was about an argument that turned physical. This was about alcohol and anger, and a weapon that should never have been in anyone's hands at that hour. The community would soon learn that Telvin had been out late, coming home around 5:30 a.m. after a long night. Some reports suggest they'd been out together initially, but the details remain murky. What is clear is that by the time they were both back in their home, something had shifted between them. Hannah Cobb wasn't some stranger to firearms. She owned the gun. She knew how to handle it. She'd later claim this was routine, that checking their weapons was something she and Telvin did together regularly. But routine doesn't explain why she felt the need to handle a loaded gun after drinking. Routine doesn't explain why there were no cleaning supplies present, and routine certainly doesn't explain why Telvin Osborne ended up with a bullet in his body. When police arrived, Hannah was attempting to administer first aid. She'd called 911. She was trying to save him, but Telvin Osborne was already gone. And the woman who pulled the trigger would spend the next 24 hours free, while his family demanded to know why she wasn't behind bars. This wasn't some random tragedy. This was a young mother who made a choice to pick up a gun in the early morning hours, a choice to handle it while intoxicated, a choice that would leave 2 children without their father and a community asking hard questions about who gets believed when there are no witnesses left alive to contradict their story. The racial dynamics were impossible to ignore. A white woman shoots her black boyfriend, claims it's an accident, and walks free for a full day while investigators gather evidence. The same investigators who would later admit they found no evidence to support her claim about checking the weapon. The same investigators who would charge her with the lightest possible homicide charge, despite publicly stating this was not an accident. Social media lit up immediately. People weren't just questioning the story, they were questioning the system. Why the delay? Why the light charge? Why did Hannah Cobb's version of events carry so much weight when the physical evidence suggested something else entirely? The night started like so many others in Burke County, drinks flowing, music playing, young parents getting a break from the daily grind. Hannah and Telvin were out together, at least for a while. But somewhere between the first drink and the last call, their paths diverged. Maybe Telvin stayed out with friends. Maybe Hannah went home early. The house is dark except for maybe a kitchen light. Kids sleeping down the hall, unaware their world's about to shatter. Two adults, both intoxicated according to investigators, facing off in their bedroom. Voices rising, accusations flying. The kind of fight that neighbors pretend not to hear through thin walls. Here's where Hannah's story takes a turn that even seasoned investigators found hard to swallow. In the middle of this heated confrontation, and remember, the sheriff called it physical, she decides to get her gun. Not to threaten, not to defend. No, according to Hannah Cobb, she got her gun to check it, to perform their nightly routine at 5:30 in the morning, after drinking, during a fight. Let that sink in. The weapon wasn't hidden in some lockbox, wasn't stashed away from the children. It was accessible enough that an intoxicated woman in the middle of an argument could grab it and have it loaded and ready in minutes, maybe seconds. What happened in those final moments before the gun went off? Only two people knew, and one of them would never speak again. In that master bedroom, Telvin Osborne's life ended with a single bullet. Hannah would tell police the gun just went off, an accident while she was checking it, making sure it was safe. Sheriff Williams and his team would comb through every inch of that bedroom, looking for those cleaning supplies Hannah mentioned, looking for evidence of this supposed nightly routine. They found blood. They found a bullet. They found a dead father of two. What they didn't find speaks volumes. No gun cleaning kit, no oil, no rags, nothing to suggest anyone was maintaining a firearm, just a loaded gun that somehow ended up pointed at Telvin Osborne at exactly the wrong moment. The 911 call came from Hannah herself. Credit where it's due. She didn't run, didn't try to hide what happened. When officers arrived, they found her attempting first aid, trying to stop bleeding that couldn't be stopped, her hands covered in his blood. Their children, mercifully, still in their rooms, still unaware their father was gone. But here's what makes investigators' jobs harder. Genuine panic looks the same whether you meant to pull that trigger or not. Tears fall the same way. Hands shake identically. Hannah Cobb was distraught, no doubt. But was she distraught because of what she'd done? Or because of what had happened? The physical evidence started painting a picture, the trajectory of the bullet, the distance between shooter and victim, the position of Telvin's body, each detail another piece of a puzzle that would determine whether Hannah Cobb was a killer or just catastrophically careless. One detail stands out from the sheriff's press conference. He was clear, crystal clear, that this investigation was not classified as accidental, not a mistake, not a mishap. But if it wasn't an accident, what was it?
Said Burke County Sheriff Alonzo Williams. According to Sheriff Williams, there's been misinformation spread about the case, including that the suspect cleaning the weapon when it went off. At no point during the investigation was there any information about a person cleaning a weapon, Williams said. Sheriff Williams stated alcohol was involved in the pow-powing, and they're not listing this as accidental. He also said there was an altercation with some pushing and shoving before the incident happened. It is reckless to go out and get drunk and then introduce a firearm into the argument, said Williams.
The sun was already up when detectives started processing the scene. Hannah Cobb sat in another room, still in her blood-stained clothes, telling her story to anyone who'd listen. The gun went off. Accident. Checking it like we always do. But investigations don't run on stories. They run on evidence, and the evidence in that bedroom was starting to tell a different tale. First problem? The gun itself. Then came the interviews, neighbors who might have heard the argument, friends who saw them earlier that night, family members who knew about their relationship dynamics. And here's where things got interesting. Nobody mentioned this nightly gun-checking ritual. Not one person said, "Oh yeah, Hannah and Telvin always checked their firearms together before bed." Sheriff Alfonso Williams faced a problem. The physical evidence suggested this wasn't accidental, but proving intent? That's a different beast entirely. They needed more than just trajectory analysis and blood spatter patterns. They needed to understand what was in Hannah's mind when she picked up that gun. What were Hannah and Telvin texting about in the days before? Were there threats, previous arguments, signs of escalation that friends and family might have missed? But then the investigation took a turn, a big turn. Hannah's story started evolving, not just a gun check gone wrong. Now there was more. She told investigators Telvin had come back to the house after she locked him out, that he'd pulled a knife on her, threatened her. And here's the kicker. She told them exactly where to find it, an 8-inch knife right where she said it would be. The text messages painted an even darker picture. After she'd locked him out, Telvin had sent her a message. "You'd better hide." Not exactly the words of a man planning a peaceful resolution. Ring camera footage surfaced. It showed them arguing earlier, Hannah telling him to get out, him leaving, then coming back. The story shifted again. Now Hannah said she'd broken free from him during their confrontation, ran to the bathroom, was actually planning to harm herself. When Telvin broke through the door, that's when she turned and fired. Once. A single shot that ended everything. Monday morning, they finally came for her. Hannah Cobb was arrested and charged with involuntary manslaughter. Not murder, not even voluntary manslaughter. The lightest possible homicide charge in Georgia. The community exploded. A white woman shoots her black boyfriend dead and gets charged with the equivalent of a deadly accident? But the story wasn't that simple anymore. There was a knife, there were threats, there was ring footage and text messages painting a picture of mutual violence. She made bail, $25,000, and an ankle monitor. Telvin's family watched the woman who killed him walk free again while they planned his funeral. The preliminary hearing revealed even more. Both had been out drinking until 2 a.m. Hannah got jealous when she thought Telvin was talking to another woman. The argument started at the club and followed them home. She'd even called his mother at one point, trying to get her to calm him down. April 24th, 2025. The grand jury meets. They review all the evidence, the knife, the threats, the text messages saying, "You'd better hide," the bathroom confrontation, Hannah's claim she was about to harm herself. And they return a no bill, no charges, nothing. Case closed. Hannah Cobb walks free. Not on bail, not awaiting trial, free. The Burke County Sheriff's Office braced for riots. Social media erupted with accusations of racial injustice. A black man is dead, a white woman admitted to shooting him, and the justice system said, "Not enough evidence." District Attorney Jared Williams stated simply, "As the grand jury has spoken, the case is closed." But is it really closed? For Telvin's family, for the community demanding answers, for those 2 children who lost their father, nothing about this case feels resolved. This case leaves behind more than just questions. It leaves behind 2 children who will grow up knowing their mother killed their father and faced no consequences. They'll have to reconcile that truth with whatever story they're told. They'll have to live in a world where daddy's gone and mommy's explanation was good enough for a grand jury, but might never be good enough for them. For Burke County's black community, this case confirmed what many already believed, that justice has a color, and it isn't theirs. Would a black woman who shot her white boyfriend during a drunken fight have walked free? Would her story of self-defense have carried the same weight? Would she have gotten 24 hours of freedom before arrest, bail she could afford, and ultimately a grand jury's blessing to walk away? The sheriff's office can brace for riots all they want, but the real damage isn't in the streets. It's in the erosion of trust. It's in the message sent that some lives matter less than others. It's in the precedent that if you're the right color and tell the right story, you can kill someone and call it self-defense, even when the sheriff himself says it wasn't an accident. Hannah Cobb is free today, free to move on with her life, free to raise those children, free to tell whatever version of that night she chooses. But freedom doesn't equal innocence. And a grand jury's decision doesn't erase the fact that she held the gun, pulled the trigger, and ended a life. This isn't just about one woman or one man or one terrible night in February. This is about a system that bends, depending on who's standing before it. This is about the stories we tell ourselves about justice and equality, and how those stories crumble when tested. Telvin Osborne was 30 years old, a father, a son, a man who came home late one night and never saw another sunrise. His story ends with a bullet, a grand jury's shrug, and a community's rage. Hannah Cobb's story? Well, she gets to keep writing hers, and that might be the most damning verdict of all. In Burke County, Georgia, you can shoot your boyfriend dead at 5:30 in the morning. You can claim self-defense. You can walk free. All you need is the right story, the right skin color, and a system willing to believe you. Justice isn't blind. Sometimes it doesn't even bother to look. Remember, danger can wear a friendly face. Stay aware, look out for others, and reach out if you need help. See you in the next case on Deranged Women. Thanks for watching.